At last, it seemed like fortune was finally on my side, now that the old man was gone. Everything was falling into place, or so I thought. But then, my husband's cold words pierced through the silence. "It's outrageous for you to speak like that so soon after his passing," I thought to myself. "Especially considering how much his father had done for us throughout our marriage. Do you even hear yourself?" I asked. "Of course I do," he snapped. "I'm taking the land and the fortune." "You inherited a lot, didn't you? You've been waiting for this moment." "Of course, I've been waiting for him to die," he added, with a smug look on his face. His words hit me like a slap. He had completely misunderstood everything. I would never act that way. "What? You can bluff all you want, but it's pointless here." He threw something at me. "Pick it up." The object was a divorce paper, already signed. Divorce papers. Just like that. "You can't do anything without me. I'll make good use of your fortune. What if I refuse?" I shot back. "Are you that stupid?" he sneered. "What's left for you but divorce? For me, it's an opportunity. Everything up until now has been a lie." He never knew the real me. "Hey, what are you doing? What does it look like?" "I'm leaving. You'll regret this." "That's my line," he retorted. "But wait, you'll be helpless without me." "We'll see about that," I said, my confidence growing. "Your company has deals with mine, doesn't it?" "My company?" He sounded confused. "You'll figure it out soon enough," I replied. "And don't worry about the divorce paper, I'll handle it myself." Without another word, I left the house. I filed for divorce and immediately called his company. "It's me. The project's cancelled. All contracts are terminated. Please, wait. If you do this." They didn't understand. My true identity was Maya Willow, the head of a company with 7,000 employees. Now that things had escalated, there was no turning back. I had a trump card up my sleeve. Just recently turned 40, I had lived my life for business, and now everything was changing. As I sat at home reflecting, I heard a familiar voice calling me. It was my husband, Leo. "What are you doing sitting here?" he asked. "Nothing much," I answered, barely looking at him. "If you're bored, at least clean the house," he added. "No, your place," I replied, sighing softly, though I hardly noticed it. It wasn't like this when we first met. I had met Leo just a year ago. At that time, marriage wasn't even on my radar. My life had been consumed by work, and marriage had seemed like an afterthought. But my father was persistent. "Huh? I'm fine, no matter how many times you try. I have no intention of marrying." "Come on, you're almost 40. You can't stay single forever." "Don't worry, Dad," I had reassured him. But my father wouldn't give up. He insisted Leo was a good man and that I would understand if I met him. It didn't take long before I realized what my father was up to. "How about now? Don't you want to meet him?" "Not at all." This back and forth continued for what seemed like an eternity. But on one particular day, my father tried again to get me to meet the man. "No matter how many times you say it, my mind won't change. At least look at his photo and then decide." "I'll look, but that's all." "Okay, where did I put that photo?" "In your study, right?" I see, I muttered as my father made his way to the study downstairs to retrieve it. Then, I heard a thud from the direction of the study. I rushed to check and found my father lying face down. "Father!" What happened? My mother, ever the calm one, appeared behind me. "Maya, call an ambulance now," she said, her voice steady. I called immediately, and the ambulance arrived in about 15 minutes. My father was unconscious, but his heart was still beating. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors confirmed he'd had a stroke. "Father, I'm so sorry, so sorry." I could hardly believe it. This wasn't something I could laugh off. Thankfully, there were no long-term health concerns. He was stable enough to come home soon. But my father's habits, his high blood pressure, smoking, and drinking, had been taking a toll on his health. The doctor gave him a stern warning to change his lifestyle, but my father acted like it was someone else's problem. No more alcohol or cigarettes from now on, the doctor ordered. But that's my pleasure, he protested. And what if you collapse again, the doctor countered. My father loved his wine, collecting bottles from all over the world and drinking every night. In response, my father made an unexpected offer. If you want me to listen, I have a condition. A condition? This isn't the time to be making deals. If you want me to stop, you'll have to meet the man I want to introduce you to. I couldn't believe it. But if this was the price for my father's health, I was willing to do it. Okay, I'll meet him. Good. I'm glad you agreed. I could almost hear my mother's silent eye roll from the kitchen. She had seen this game before. Well, there's no time to waste. I'll call him now. No, not now. I protested. When something is decided, don't hesitate, my father said with finality. That's our family motto. I've never heard that before, I muttered. But before I knew it, the man was at the door. Sorry for the sudden invitation. This is Leo, a promising figure from a company we do business with. Nice to meet you. Ah, nice to meet you too. I'm Maya Willow. And so, that was how I met Leo. Despite it being our first encounter, we quickly found common ground in a work-related conversation. My father had already sung my praises to him, having met Leo at a social event for business leaders. Time passed quickly, and today was the day I was supposed to visit my father in the hospital. I'm going to see Dad, but I'll pass. You go on your own. I think he's been looking forward to seeing you, Leo said. I already went before, so I think that's enough, I replied. You can't be serious. You know how long the trip takes, and I'm busy. His dismissive words left me stunned. But the fear of causing a scene or upsetting him held me back. In the end, I went to visit my father alone. When I arrived, my father, who had initially resisted his hospitalization, had surprisingly made a quick connection with the other patients. His cheerful nature seemed to help him make friends easily. Father, there you are. It's time for your temperature check. Let's head back, I said, trying to hide the anxiety I felt. Already? Well, let's go then, he replied, grinning as he waved goodbye to the other patients. As we walked back to his room, he asked, Is Leo not with you today? Ah, he's a bit busy. He sent his regards, I said, carefully avoiding the truth. I couldn't bring myself to tell my father that Leo had refused to visit. How are things going with Leo? My father asked, out of nowhere. Why do you ask? I responded, a bit confused. Just wondering if everything's okay. We're fine. Didn't you ask me that already? Did I? I've been forgetful lately. It's nice to have just you here today. What do you mean? I need to talk to you about something important. His words caught my attention. I couldn't have imagined the gravity of what was about to come. This conversation would change everything, and my feelings toward Leo would soon turn to hatred. Go ahead, what is it? I've been struggling. It might be difficult for me to continue as president of the company. What do you mean? What about the company? That's why I've found someone I trust to take over for me. Who? You, Maya. It's you. Me? That's impossible. You've been by my side for years, watching how everything works. I've discussed it with the executives, and they agree. But this is too sudden. Please. I had never seen my father plead before. He had always been the pillar of our family, the one who made everything possible. Now, it seemed like it was my turn to step up and protect him. Okay, Maya. I knew you'd understand. But remember, you need to rest and get better. I will. But don't tell anyone about this, not yet. Not even Leo? Especially not Leo. His serious tone made me uneasy. At the time, I didn't understand why he was so insistent on keeping it a secret, but I agreed. Becoming president wasn't as simple as I had expected. I couldn't just start making decisions, I had a lot to learn. Fortunately, the company's executives were supportive and eager to help me. 2 months later. You've been getting home late a lot lately. What's going on? Leo asked one evening. I've had a lot of extra work lately. A younger employee quit, so I'm picking up the slack, I explained, trying to hide the truth. Well, listen to this, I just secured a huge contract. And guess what? It's with your company. Oh, really? I had known about the contract, but I had no idea Leo was involved. I hope you can learn something from this, though I doubt you will. His smug tone irritated me. Without thinking, I shot back, you won't know until you try. Immediately, I regretted my words. I knew better than to provoke Leo, so I quickly backpedaled. Right, I forgot. I couldn't possibly do it. A few days later, I received a call from the hospital. My father's condition had worsened, and it was critical. I rushed to the hospital, where my mother had already arrived, looking exhausted. Maya, how's he doing? He's in his room right now, I said, trying to stay composed. Inside the room, my father lay unconscious with a respirator, barely breathing. The doctor explained that a blood clot had formed in his brain again. Was the surgery successful? I asked, my voice trembling. The surgery was successful, but the damage to the brain is severe. There's a possibility he won't wake up. I felt helpless. My father had resisted surgery for a long time, fearing he might lose his memory and forget his loved ones. Why was he still worried about his family, though? I whispered to myself, barely holding back my tears. Then, to my shock, my father stirred and woke up. Maya, are you there? He asked weakly. I'm here, Dad. I'm right here. Listen carefully. Be careful of Leo. Leo? What do you mean? In my study, in the drawer, there's an envelope. Look at it. Before I could ask more, my father's breathing grew weaker, and he passed away, leaving everything in darkness. I tried calling Leo, but there was no response. Where were you? Why didn't you answer your phone? I was busy, Leo said nonchalantly when I finally confronted him. My father just passed away, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Leo looked down, trembling. What? Then he quickly excused himself. My plan is in its final phase. What plan? I asked, confused. It's none of your concern, he replied, turning away with a cold smile. He retreated to his study, leaving me with a sense of unease. Later, my mother and I began preparing for my father's funeral. In the middle of the arrangements, she reminded me, didn't your father ask you to check his study? I almost forgot. I'll go check now. In my father's study, I found the envelope he had mentioned. As soon as I opened it, everything became clear. Leo's actions began to make sense. My father had left behind something important for me, something that explained Leo's behavior and intentions. On the back of the envelope was a handwritten note from my father. Reading it, I felt my anger rise. I realized then that I no longer needed to hold back my emotions. I would get justice for my father, and I wouldn't let Leo get away with it. The funeral went smoothly, and we gave my father a proper send-off. But that wasn't the end of the story. Afterward, my mother called for a family meeting to read my father's will. Thank you for coming, she said as we sat down. What's going on today? Leo asked, feigning ignorance. We're reading your father's will, my mother replied. Apparently, my father had prepared it during his hospital stay. The contents were straightforward, the family home and half of the estate went to my mother, while the rest, including valuable land, was left to me. I don't know what to do with the land, dear, my mother said. I'm sure I'll find a way to use it, I replied, my thoughts racing. I caught a glimpse of Leo, who was barely holding back a smile. His plan had been foiled, and I knew this was just the beginning of what would come next. The will reading concluded, and my mother suggested we go out to eat, but Leo abruptly left, claiming he had something urgent to attend to. I sighed, sorry, Mom, I think I'll head back too. That's probably best, dear, we'll have dinner another time. After leaving my parents' house, I followed Leo. I knew he was up to something. At home, Leo lounged on the sofa, acting as if nothing had happened. What took you so long? He asked. Were you stalling? I came straight home, I replied, fighting the urge to confront him. Well, sit down, there's something I need to talk about. A chill ran down my spine as I sat down. Leo's smirk was enough to make my blood run cold. Now that the old man is gone, he said, everything is finally falling into place for me, get it? It's my turn now. The reality of his intentions hit me hard. You really don't understand, do you? I said, my voice trembling with anger. Leo didn't respond. Instead, he threw something at me. Pick it up. It was a divorce paper, already signed.